You have it in you to desire both the sort of girly, little princess type of seductive girl who wants you to do things to her. That's the message you think you're getting from her, on the one hand. And on the other hand, there's the sort of Cosmo woman, I am independent.
Are you as happy about this with all your other interviews?
Yes.
Not everyone else is going to be talking about the colour of their room and suddenly out comes Ben talking about wanking.
I swear.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right.
So the question is physical. I mean, one is attracted to a pattern of relationship. You might be attracted to people who need to be looked after or whatever it is, you know what I mean?
I haven't had enough relationships to establish a pattern.
Really?
No. I've only ever had one really long-term, proper, loving, mutual relationship. I mean, I've had many, friends, non-sexual relationships, I have many, obviously.
Yeah, talking about sex, yeah.
But again,
when you fancy people on the tube, there must be some that you fancy and some that you don't. So
oh, yeah, but that's physical.
And what is it that you fancy then?
Well, yeah, everyone has tastes, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
I think it's only necessary to tell you what you know already, that everyone has tastes in everything.
But the reason I'm asking that is because I think
tastes. They're heterosexual, for what that's worth. But I mean, what does interest me actually is that the girls I've found myself with sometimes have not actually gone by, you have fantasy taste and then you have real taste. That may be that may be true. As I say, it's pretty normal actually.
Can you think of an example where fantasy taste and the real taste weren't the same?
No, because I'm talking about real people.
Make one up.
No, well, you could. It's difficult to say, really. I mean, I suppose, for instance, I love if I go and see a 50s movie and there's a girl in sort of the 50s cinema, with a ponytail, that aggressive American innocence, and all that. They're very, very pretty, very attractive, sort of toothpaste advert sort of attraction, the bobby socks and the sort of I don't know, sort of virginal, aspect of it all. I mean, virtually chattels. They have these prom dances where it's, who's taking you. You can't go unless you're taken and all that shit. Now, I can't deny that has its place in my, this is one example of many. Before in journals are saying Ben fancies bobby soxes, I take it as an example. Yeah, now that's not, I don't think I would probably enjoy more than 5 minutes with, the sort of, this sort of rather vapid, I'm not saying, incidentally, that you can't fancy someone who you don't intellectually get on with. I mean, unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's exactly what one does do. All I'm saying is that, yeah, I fancy lots of types of women, but I wouldn't necessarily want to go to bed with them all. And anyway, I believe that one has to be deeply responsible. It makes me laugh. Well, not makes me laugh, Jesus. But this thing about condoms, remember, lads, wear a condom because of AIDS. I've all worn condoms if I've got... Jesus, a man's responsibility to contraception, in my opinion, it should be written on his heart. You don't just presume. I don't say again like a preacher, but condoms were invented so men could take responsibility for their actions just as much as for women to feel safe, And I believe, I've always believed strongly that men should. I think it's evil for a man to say, "Oh, I never asked her," Basically, if she doesn't, if she shags me, she's probably protected, and if she's not, that's got to be her lookout. I believe everything takes two to tango. I don't think I've ever, probably someone will write in and say, "Do you remember on tour in 19..."
Do you get depressed? As if you get let down, if somebody dies, if a girlfriend leaves you, something like that.
Yes, I've been left once, and after a very long time, and I was very sad, but I don't think I was depressed in the way that the word must be used. Oh God, I'm so depressed. That's crap. You're unhappy and you're sad. You're bored. What I felt was bored with myself. It's a lie,
You're angry.
Well, not angry, no, bored. I felt useless. I thought, Jesus, I've up here, I've been working so hard and I haven't concentrated on the things that matter. And I should have been doing something different. I just got very bored with myself. It was while I was writing Filthy Rich and Caplap, actually. I got very, very... Oh, Christ, why don't I just sort off? I got some money, why don't I go and sit on the beach, drink some beer and things, and in the end you end up drinking your beer at 11 o'clock, trying to get to sleep, But that's not depression. I never felt I was going to give up. I never felt that I wanted to die. I never felt that I wasn't in some way doing the right thing and being honest with myself and to my friends, and that's a very, very important thing to me. Personal honesty and honesty to the people you like and love.
What's the most paranoid you've ever been?
It's so difficult to think.
Do you think you've ever been seriously deluded?
Oh, many times. I mean, I presume somebody didn't like me so often that, and turned out that maybe they didn't love me, but they certainly weren't sitting there hating me, you know what I mean? I'm constantly deluded. You always take
Give me an example.
Well, it's difficult because it's so constant. I mean, the example is the presumption that somebody doesn't like you.
Today, what did you do last night? Day before?
Well, you see, you got a problem because I work so damn hard. I've been writing Black out of 3, you know. I mean, I really haven't done anything. And because, you know, I have so little time to see my mates, I tend to hang out with my oldest mates. Maybe that's a protection, you know. I mean, I tend to be okay with them. I can't really think of an example, and so that's not going to be a very interesting bit of the interview. I just know that people...
What do you feel now?
Oh, I'm okay now. I've done a lot of this sort of thing, and I'm a good talker. And because you want me to talk, it's okay. If we'd got to this point at a dinner party, I would now be thinking, shit, I'm going on and on and on and on. Because I wouldn't have done it, but I might have done a quarter of it and still think that. I mean, all I know is that in my life, I met many, many people who say, oh, I was there last night, and I think they didn't like me. People, you go to a job...
What do you think they don't like about you?
No, like about themselves. I'm trying to say that this is everybody.
Yeah, I know.
It's not me.
Yeah.
I think this is a common emotion.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Well, and we started by you saying, do you think you get up on stage and shout a lot because you experience paranoia? And I said no, because if that were the case, everybody would be on the stage and there'd be no one in the audience, because I'm not experiencing anything that anybody else does.
You might be more paranoid than most people.
No, I think I'm less so. From my experience of sort of comforting friends and saying, look, come on, man. I mean, I'm always saying to people, look, they're thinking the same thing. I say to people who say, oh, you know, I did this job interview and there was somebody next to me who was so confident. And I say, look, that person thinks you're confident. That's the astonishing thing. People always presume everybody else is feeling good, and they're the ones who are in trouble. It's not true. You can get great comfort from realising that everybody else hates themselves too. Well, not hates themselves, but is like not feeling as confident as they appear. People put out a facade. You know, it's so... I mean, you as somebody interviews, you must, you know, be surprised at times. Like, you know, people who appear so sort of like up front and strong, they turn out to be like really quite scared underneath.
Do you ever at all ever feel and wish that you might be a bit less intense? You're quite an intense person, I think.
Well, it's a bit difficult not to be intense when you're in a sort of stupid chair like this, trying to formulate your thoughts about whether or not you masturbated when you were 11. I mean, it's quite an intense thing. I'm not always intense at all. I like to laugh. Private jokes. I mean, when I'm in the pub, I'll tell you one thing. I don't particularly like heavy conversations. I mean, I've not, like, you know, my friend, I've been in a relationship, and I've know people who like to talk and like to expose ideas and explore. I think, oh Christ, you know, they're just going to sit talking all evening. Can't we just go out to the pub and play pool? I think actually that is quite a male thing. You know, I like to play a bit of pool, you know, chat. You know, I don't really like to converse too much. This is quite weird. You know, I mean, it's an interview, so I'm going for it. And it's not really a conversation anyway. You're trying to promote a monologue, really.
So that really brings us to our last question, which is how genuine would you say you're being here compared to, you know, you're in front of the camera, there's lots of people watching, to when you're at home?
Oh, I'm being genuine. I think I'm being honest. I mean, I have in my mind the fact that I don't want to say things that can be taken out of context, not by you, but by others. When you've been doing it as long as I have, which is 6 years, which is quite a long time, you realise that communication isn't easy, even if you're good at it, which I think I am. So you can be misinterpreted. But I'm being honest, and I'm not thinking about the, you know, the people watching, because, you know, you managed to create a fairly sympathetic ambiance. If you hadn't, I'd have been very brittle, and I'd have had a go at you. I think, you know, I tried to tell the truth, but on the other hand, everything that we've said, we've changed subject before you've even got to, I think on my feet, or on my ass as I am at the moment. I don't think beforehand, so I feel very frustrated, like what we're talking about, toilet humour and things. I feel very frustrated that we only started, I only halfway got to what I wanted before we had to move on. You can't come up with the real truth without a certain amount of effort. And even an interview of this depth, which is considerable for TV, is I've only ever done one other like this, and that was in Oz, Australia, without being too cool. So even this, you can't really get far. And that's why I keep saying, oh Christ, am I coming over as some kind of opinionated, facile, hippie drip? Well, if I am, you know, maybe that's what I am, you know. My work speaks for itself. I don't really like doing interviews, even though you have to do them. But it's what I say and do. It's what I say and do.
We'll start off with your youth.
My youth?
What sort of 13-year-old were you?
Same as most, I suppose.
What was your physical appearance?
Much the same as now, but smaller, obviously. Less hairy, perhaps, you know. Hairline a bit forward, maybe.
And what sort of personality did you have?
I was a little bastard, really, I think. Talking to my sister, so my mum, I was a bit of a tearaway.
What particularly? I mean,
I used to do a lot of fighting at school, and we had a gang. The Curry Boys, we used to call ourselves. Hot stuff, get it, get it? We used to do disgusting things like bury crows and wait till they were full of maggots and then throw them at people at bus stops and, you know, a nice little boy, that sort of thing.
Were you a bully?
No, I wasn't a bully. I was never a bully, no. I mean, the people who were bullies were not the big guys. They were the guys who, you know, had something to prove and were just simply nasty.
What was the nastiest thing you did at that age that you can remember?
The nastiest thing? I think I persuaded somebody that for the initiation ceremony to join the gang, you had to slide down a wire, and he took most of the skin off his hands. And we all thought that was terribly funny. But, I mean, you know what little bastards you are at that age, you know.
When did you come into puberty?
What do you mean? When did I get hairy bollocks? You've been 12, 13, I think. You're going to leave this in?
Did you do things like sort of shoplift?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, actually. I remember, well, in those days, they used to have big jars of sweeties in the newsagents, and they used to pile them up, and the wifeys had to get up on a wee stool to get the mixed boiling, so you always went for the ones at the top. And whilst they were clambering up the stairs, it was da-la-la-la-la-la, you know.
Did you ever get caught?
No, never got caught. No.
What about sort of
I wonder if we should be saying this. This is encouraging shoplifting all over Britain, you realise.
No, it's a very natural, perfectly normal thing to do.
Is it, Doctor? Thank you.
Did you do sort of worse things than that? Do you do things like steal cars or anything like that?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah.
Can you remember a particular incident?
Well, Morris's and Austin's and Ford's, basically there were only 6 keys. And once the locks were worn, you could open them with a hairpin.
And what did you do once you were in?
Just drove them about.
Just for the hell of it?
Just for the sheer murder of it.
Your father, was he strict?
Very strict, but also terribly funny. I mean, he was a kind of, I think he was a closet anarchist, really. I mean, well, he had a rather ambivalent attitude. He was a doctor. He had a rather ambivalent attitude to medicine, for a start, because although on the one hand, I mean, anyone who's a doctor has to believe in science, and that in itself is an act of faith. People think that scientists are terribly rational people in white coats, but actually they have a very emotional relationship with their science, which is why you have to fight the whole atom thing. Well, getting a bit lateral here, aren't we? But he reckoned that about 60% of the people who came to see him really needed to talk to a wise man. There was nothing wrong with that bod at all.
But in his dealings with you,
in his dealings with me, he realized he'd come up against something, and he was quite determined to show who was boss, but, you know, maybe Freud was right, you know.
How do you go about that?
Well, he used to hit me a lot. Until one day, I hit him back, and he didn't get up for a long time. It didn't occur to me till I was 15. I suddenly thought, wait a minute, I don't have to take this. But he treated me with a lot of respect after that, in fact. I think maybe he was waiting for me to do it. I think he was probably rather relieved that I did. I eat more than I should eat, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be fat. But I don't actually eat vast amounts. I really don't.
Yeah, but not every... I mean, I eat more than I'd like to eat.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it is a conspicuous fact about you that, you know...
That I'm overweight?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Perceptive boy. Yeah, well, I mean, I probably just lack the willpower, actually, to get rid of it. I mean, I should do, and
Despite your strict upbringing?
Despite my strict upbringing.
Well, do you think a strict upbringing, you'd be very fastidious about what you eat and how often you eat?
Well, I'm too much of a sensualist, really, to be very... That's the trouble. I mean, I love to eat, you know, I love to eat. I love my physical pleasures. I like to drink, you know.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, talking of physical pleasures, what's your first memory of sex?
My first memory of sex? Oh, boy. You want names?
Yes.
I used to play strip poker with the girl next door, and I used to fix the cards. She's probably some happily married, respectable lady somewhere now. Yeah, I used to fix the cards. So you fancy a game of strip jack? And then suddenly she'd be bollock naked, and I'd be sitting there.
What age are we talking here?
24. I don't know, about 11, 12, something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when did you start masturbating?
When did I? Oh, I don't remember, actually. I remember I used to do pleasurable things lying on my front in the bed from a very early age. You know, not actually, you know, no small talk at this show, is there? I don't know, about 7, 8, something like that, I think.
Because you're quite an idealistic person in a way, or anyway, quite romantic. Have you fallen in love?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Absolutely terrible. I mean, yeah, well, you know what it's like. Have you ever fallen in love?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
It's that whole ache and, yeah. There's an idea that was terribly discredited in the 60s. I mean, people used to talk about being hung up on somebody as if it was some sort of psychological aberration, really caring about somebody. And it is a sort of madness, I suppose. Yeah.
What do you think about marriage, then?
It's a fine institution, but who wants to live in an institution?
Do you?
I've been getting a bit broody recently and thinking about kids. That's the only reason I would, because I think everyone should have a mum and a dad, really. I mean, there's a lot of feminists and sort of single-parent women going around saying that men are redundant and that we're basically just walking dildos and stuff. But I think really they're talking about their own psychological past rather than men. Do you know? I mean, there's a lot of... You know, historically and specifically, men have been fucking awful to women for years, and there are a lot of women wandering around with the scars of that, but that's not a philosophy. You can't say, my dad was rotten to me. I mean, it's like, I met a guy in a pub the other day whose father had been crippled by 2 black guys. And he said, don't talk to me about the fucking blacks. I fucking crippled my dad. Now you say, well, that's terrible, but I mean, it's not the fact that they were black that, you know, I mean, there are not many blacks at Heysel Stadium. There's bad people around, and I mean, I think it's the same argument. You know, my dad was a bastard, you've got a pair of balls, therefore I hate you. I say, oh, come on, you know, I mean, it's good men and bad men. I think that's just silly.
Do you think you could make a marriage work?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you think you'd be an easy person to live with?
Very difficult to live with, yeah. Very difficult, because I'm moody, and sometimes I don't go to bed at all, and sometimes I...
Your father died when you were quite young.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was terrible not to have a dad.
Can you remember that? I mean, was it very unpleasant?
Yeah, it was horrible, yeah.
Can you remember where you were when you heard?
I was in the room when he died. He was reading me a story and he died.
Oh, no.
Just as he was reading me the story and they took him off and... I was 6 and I just don't really remember much about him. I mean, he was Polish. I just remember his very strong Polish accent. That was it. And then always having my mother and my sister, so it's always been a very women-dominating our family. That's why when I was pregnant, I really wanted a boy. I thought, I can't bear any more overpowering women. But I've got a daughter, I've got Mabel. Yes, so there you go. But you just had to bash on. My mother's always one of those great survivors in this world, and it was just, on you go, onward, you know, and she just has always been so strong, so she's transferred that to us. And
presumably she must have been fairly shattered. I suppose, yeah. Because it's much worse if it happens suddenly as well, I think.
Yeah, it was sudden.
Do you remember getting very depressed about it at the time?
Yeah, I remember doing... They told me, I think they made the mistake, they told me he was coming back, that he was just on holiday, which is a really stupid thing to do. And they didn't tell me for about 3 months. And I used to imagine him sipping lemonade under a parasol in Marbella or something. And they finally, and I think I knew that it was something that was later, because I'd seen him die. And then they finally told me he's not coming back, and I can remember screaming and screaming and screaming. But then almost using it as a bit to my advantage by getting sympathy at school. I can remember, you know, if the kids were horrible to me, it was, don't be horrible to me because I haven't got a dad. And I can remember using it, and that's really, and then you get on with it, and you know, every Christmas I miss him, and that's about it now.
But you're always a good sort of fantasist as well. Good at, like, you're obviously very good at making things up.
Yeah. To cheer my mum up, really, when he died, we used to put shows on for her. I mean, we were always fantasising about something, imagining other things. That's from the start of becoming an actress. God, I hate that expression, actress. And we used to, you know, make up shows and do shows for my mum in her bedroom and cheer her up. And
what sort of...
do the Patty Ullman show, not the Tracey Ullman show. This is my copyright, my sister. And in my mum's bedroom, we used to stand on the windowsill and open the curtains, and it was like my stage, and we put our negligees on, and I was to be Morel Mathieu, the French singer. We did all these shows in my mum's bedroom. She'd just sit in there with a little hearing aid and go, oh, Lydia, isn't it marvellous? They're so talented. So, yeah, we had great imaginations, me and my sister.
So, and you think that cheering your mum up actually got you started on being a performer, should we say?
Yes, you could maybe think that, yes. Yeah. We needed some laughs around the house, I tell you.
Do you think there was an element to saying, I mean, obviously you loved your husband and so on, and something you wanted to marry him, but a part of you that wanted a secure, stable life, and that you didn't really want to be messing about with boys for the rest of your life?
No, I couldn't mess around with all that dating stuff. I was useless standing around in nightclubs, you know, with a drink going. Me and my sister say, go to the toilets, and when you see go past this guy, see what sort of shoes he's wearing. What? All right. I come back and I go, and she go, what shoes? I go, hush puppy. She go, oh, forget it. We used to stand around these clubs. I mean, what do we think was ever going to come and hit us, you know? Robert Redford was going to come up. And we just had no idea. I don't know. No, I couldn't stand all that dating and trying to find somebody. I hated it.
And you didn't ever have a phase of sort of promiscuity, to put it?
No, not really. I'm just not... Maybe that's to come. You know, Alan's watching this. Maybe that's to come. No, I was always a bit of a jerk in that area.
I suppose, I mean, what you were saying before is interesting as well, that the fact of your father dying seems to have had a huge effect on your life, really.
Yeah, if you really start analysing things, I guess it has, and I think Alan is a bit of a father figure too. And I look at him with Mabel, my baby, and I just think, oh my God, you know, if anything ever happened to him, she's so lucky, look at her. You know, I just envy her for having a father. It's really weird, because I didn't.
Why do you think you're able to be, I mean, you seem incredibly level-headed.
Don't put that double cream on your apple pie, you big fat slob. Because my husband eats so much, I go, yeah, just get the bloody can Marc cholesterol. Just why don't you fry it as well, Al? Have a heart attack, leave us. You know, I'm always going on at me, he goes, oh, shut up, just relax, will you? I mean, I'm already doing all that, but in my way, you know, I try. He said, what would you like, cream or custard? So he goes, both. I go, yeah, and fry it and put cholesterol on it too. He's a nightmare. He's got the British eating habits. He eats rubbish.
But
Have some bran, Al. Why? Don't taste of nothing. Sick of it.
Why do you think you're so level-headed and you manage to digest all these things that have happened to you and be able to really know what you want and how to sort your life out so it's a happy life? Why, you know, other people might just be creased up by it and depressed, but somehow you've managed to...
I don't know, maybe it's because I got a sense of humour. I mean, I can't go on about sense of humour because in my simple way, that's the only way I can describe it. I can always laugh at myself. I don't have a burning, I'm not a jealous person, I don't have a burning desire to be incredibly famous. I'm a hard worker. I listen to other people's opinions. I listen to other people. I just don't take myself too seriously. I mean, having my own TV series in the States, I look at the machinations of how people start to go crazy with power and ego, and it becomes a Tracey Ullman production with a Tracey Ullman show, and your husband manages you, and you have more and more millions. And you just got to keep it in all in perspective. I walk around the lot at Fox, where I work, and I look for Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis and all the LA law people, and they never come out of their air-conditioned Winnebagos where they're arguing with people for more money. And I think the day I sort of let that get on top of me and think of those things are more important, then it'll be the end, you know. You've got to stop all that. There's more going on in the world than the Tracey Ullman show. I stand there in Hollywood sometimes and going, so the script just isn't right and I just can't do this. I mean, honestly, I've argued with the writers when I go, and I can stop and think, oh, shut up, look at you. You know, you sound so stupid. You sound like a stereotype. You sound like a Beverly Hills stereotype. And there's people, all this, you know, there's people starving in the world. But there are, and you've got to, you know, got to keep things in perspective.
But have you ever had a period when you've got really depressed, when things have just gone horribly wrong and you just...
Yeah, yes. I had a period I couldn't get out of bed for about 3 months. I used to lie there and eat bananas. Couldn't even face doing the washing up.
And when was that?
82. A terrible, terrible time. Just feeling really, yeah, like the bottom's fallen out your world. That's all part of it. It's all part of life. It's all part of learning, isn't it? Something like that happens to you, so you know that experience in your life. And it all gathers together, doesn't it? Having babies, getting married, talking about it, doing this, doing that.
What
adds
happened
up
to
to
you?
life.
I mean, why did you get depressed like
God
that?
knows. I think I spent 4 months in Newcastle upon Tyne doing a pantomime in a freezing spell, and it was just a stupid thing to do. I did it for the money. I did it to get a deposit for a house, and it was the craziest thing I could have done. Every day I would go to the theatre with my snow boots on, do 2 shows in the freezing cold with a thermal vest on, going, "Hi, I'm Dick Whittington. Are you going to be my friend?" We sort of Geordie kids going, "No, bug off, you fat cow." And then I'd go back to this little digs and cook like little lamb's kidneys and Brussels sprouts on this stove. And then I'd just go to bed and think, just sleep, because tomorrow there's 1 day less of this horrible show to do. And it was a stupid thing to do. She said, why put yourself, I'd never do that again, put myself through that. I needed the money at the time, though. And I came back from that and just completely collapsed for 3 months and couldn't face the world. It was just the horror of it hit me. But, golly.
I mean, some people would think that people who are trying to be humorous all the time really feel quite sad. This is a cliched account of comedy. Does that apply to you at all? Do you feel
I can
like...
see that. I mean, all that whole Tony Hancock syndrome that everyone goes on about, manic depressives are great at comedy. I can see the link, absolutely. I mean, because I just talked about, and you've made me talk about some things that really were horrifying in my life and that felt terrible at the time. But I can almost laugh at them now, and I'm not laughing nervously. I honestly can see the humour in them, and that.
Yes, it does feel as though you have, that it's not that you're kind of manically trying to turn it all into a big joke.
No,
it feels as though you resolve these things to some extent.
Yeah. Yes, you do resolve it in your mind. Time is a great healer. All those things your mum says to you when you're heartbroken over a guy. Don't worry, time will heal it all. And it always does. It's never going to be the same tomorrow. When
you got into this depression that you were talking about, when you stayed in bed for 3 months, how did you get yourself out of that? Was it the old pull yourself together girl stuff, or did you start to analyse?
It was pull yourself together girl stuff, and I remember seeing an article, a brilliant article in The Guardian at the time, that really just, like, I clung on to it. It said, I read an article of a guy who said he'd had similar symptoms to me. He said, almost like my mother said, but just know this, it doesn't last forever, and it does stop. I used to cling to that. Simple things. I didn't analyse, I just clung to simple things and looked at flowers and got a puppy and a bit of responsibility and just nice simple things.
So you didn't start to analyse, you didn't start to say, why is this happening to me? What is going on in my life?
I think I do, I can see it more now. I couldn't at that time. I just had to keep it, there's a little expression in America, keep it simple, stupid. But it's very true.
But if you hit a problem that you couldn't get out of, say you kept it simple, and you'd gone on being depressed, what do you think you would have done?
God knows. Well, you would have got through it somehow. Something would have changed, wouldn't it?
Well, some people get depressed and just stay depressed.
Well, I didn't. I don't know how to answer that one now. And if I talk about it too much, it makes you feel miserable, reminding you of that time.
You know, how did you get on with your mother?
Well, no, I wasn't. It's I sort of haven't seen my father in a long time.
Didn't you get
Years
on well?
and years and years. Not at all. No, not in the slightest.
And
not
he
in the
didn't really
slightest.
take an interest in you in the same way the teachers didn't?
Not really. No, not at all. I really like. I think when I went home from school, I think there's one of the. I just used to sort of dread. I think I used to dread going to school and then dread going home again. I think from
What happened when you got
after
home?
school.
You would just be very unpleasant to you, or what?
No, it was just. There was a lot of. I've talked about this before, and the thing is, it's very awkward to talk about because it's very sort of, and it's not very fair to my mother, really, because she sort of tried very, very hard under very, very difficult circumstances, and now, sort of, thankfully, she's very happy and leading a very happy life and remarried and having a wonderful time, and so those times. I could talk about them in great length and talk about the sort of unpleasantnesses, but occasionally, I will say one thing about my father, occasionally, like a bad penny, every bad penny, he crops up usually every year to give his piece in one of the daily newspapers about how he's putting one single coal on the fire. And how he desperately wants to get in touch with me and make amends for all those years, but no way.
Do you remember that
That's
with John?
That's the cold heart inside of me coming out. I'm afraid. It's been chiselled over many years.
You remember that with John Lennon, his father turning up also?
Well, they always do. I think like bad pennies. I think well, if you were there when when I really needed that encouragement. But then again, I think I probably have a lot to thank him for. Maybe I wouldn't have turned out doing the things that I'm doing today. Maybe it brought something out of me that made me a survivor, made me do my own things, and make me. I think in a way when people talk about success being a kind of revenge, I think that is very true in a way. I think it is to prove yourself and to have really revenge on a lot of the people that really thought you were a no-hoper in the first place, and you thought, but I know that you're wrong, and one of these days I'm going to prove that to you. He'll probably turn up again with one single coal on the fire, I could cry, my heart bleeds.
But do you think you were sort of not brought up to be a man then, in that sense? I mean, you weren't. I mean, did you end up then, taking a lot of your identity and your ideas from your mother?
Probably. I was probably. I think most of the time I was probably brought up in female surroundings with my mother or my grandmother.
Did you have any siblings?
Sister, as well. So I was probably brought up in. Probably explains a hell of a lot, really.
Do you think it does?
It probably does. I have this. I do. I don't really like to think of myself as being a person that is. I'm always seeing these words like camp or effeminate or, I don't know, equivalent words. I tend to have a real sort of, they tend to make my back bristle a little bit and they give me this terrible masculinity complex and try and make me try extra hard to be extra masculine, I think.
But you come across as being not particularly trying to be masculine, but come across as being fairly sure of what you think and.
I basically have a loathing to come across as a screaming queen, I think.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some screaming queens, and I don't want to be like them.
No.
I don't want to be that much of a stereotype.
Do you think that wickedness is integral to enjoyment in sex for most people? That the feeling you're doing something wrong.
I think in everyone, I think there's a dark desire in everyone. I think it's there lurking, in those shadowy catacombs, and I think there is this dark desire of the of wickedness in everyone, or to be wicked, to do something that is not to be done. You know, whether it's like to some people it's like staying up after midnight and eating a chocolate biscuit. To other people it's like, you know, sort of
infidelity.
Or infidelity. To other people it's sitting on someone's fist. You know,
Yeah.
it really sort of like you know, it's we all are different sort of like boundaries of desire and of sex.
But breaking those boundaries, it creates excitement for people.
Yes, I think so, and I think this is one of the reasons I think why people always, you know, are very interested in talking about the sexual themes in my songs, or in quote the darker themes in my songs, the blacker themes in my songs, you know.
Why are they called darker or blacker? Because I think they're just
but
honest.
to other people, I think they're often darker and blacker because they see something that is wicked, or see something that they maybe like that sort of lights their own sort of wicked, you know, the
Society says
yeah.
it's wicked, it's not.
So I think that, and I think that often maybe, you know, if what I'm doing is maybe sometimes just sort of quenching that thirst in people.
I think another thing that your songs very much get at and are honest about is the whole business of power, dominance, and also, of course, the actual pleasure that people can get from inflicting pain and receiving it.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose.
Tainted love, you know, it's very much about agony of...
I think so, yes. I often think that maybe a lot more of the time more emotional agonies than maybe the actual physical agonies, I would say, anyway. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, viewers watching in, when you say, like, the physical agonies and the physical pains, obviously they'll think, oh, bondage, you know, bondage and whips and, you know, and nipple clamps and things. and those are all great fun things, you know. Yeah. But I think it's more, it goes deeper than that. It's something that's not, it does something that doesn't involve actual implements or tools or instruments, you know. It's something, I think the worst pain of all is or the most, to some people, the sweetest pain of all, I think, is a more mental pain, a mental anguish, I think, that can be caused.
And I think unrequited love.
Yes, or the pain in relationships and the games people play in relationships, hurting each other, and per people always come back for more. You know, in relationships, you get hurt, you know, you get emotionally, you get mentally hurt, and it does physically hurt as well. It's an actual pain that you feel, but you come back for more. It's this masochist that's you know, I think a lot of us.
But I mean, has AIDS made a huge difference to your life? Do you anyway basically feel that, you know, promiscuity is a very dangerous thing now?
People always go about this promiscuity that's like, around Britain, I've never, you know, I've really never seen a lot of it abroad, definitely. I think it makes, I think it's very, especially difficult. It's like, in a way, I've sort of like, you know, lived through those times of like the 70s and early 80s, that it was the sexual explosion, experimentation, and sexual freedom, you know, and I've got that sort of experience as part of my life, and I've been. No, not out. I think I'm still sort of. I think that it's still. I think it's still in everybody's system. I think sexuality is still. Is always going to be there in everyone. We can't just make it go away like a nasty spot or something. It's going to be there in everyone for a long time. I think the new generations growing up are maybe going to grow up with different attitudes. You can already see it happening in New York. There's in the gays sort of thing. There's the sort of. The clones on one side, the older gays of around 40, and there's the other young gays of about 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and they're like a million miles apart. They're in completely different worlds, they're completely different communities, and with different attitudes. Masturbation has come very much back to the fore, and people are still having, I think, a lot of sexual experiences. From what I can gather, speaking to people, or what I witness with my own eyes, or what I see, still having sexual experiences, but safe sexual experiences. Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think it's not to... Sex is not going to go away, and sex doesn't have to go away. I just think people's attitudes change towards it, and we find new ways of fulfilling those sexual desires, safer ways of fulfilling those sexual desires. But having said that, I don't want to sit here and like sound and sound off sanctimonious, like many other people that I've seen recently. And so recently I always find myself being dragged into doing, whether it's about heroin or whether it's about AIDS, and all I can sit here really and do is be sanctimonious or sing a couple of naff protest songs, you know. Yeah, you know. Yeah, you know.